Okay, we're doing it standing. We're filming standing. Hello. This is my May wrap up. We've talked about what I read a little bit on and off throughout the month, but I'm gonna stand up. I'm not gonna sit down. I'm gonna stand up and talk to you about everything, all in a big group. We're gonna get through it. I read 11 books in the month of May, which is not a lot compared to what I read in January, February, March, where I read nearly 20 books each month. But I'm still happy because that is more books than I was reading 3 years ago when I was not reading even a book a month. So I'm happy with that result. I had a good time. I did some buddy reads. I finished off some series. I made progress in some series. I don't know why I'm gesturing over here. It's actually down there. I'm just gesturing, and it's going to happen because when I stand up, I do this. So that's why I usually sit in my videos so that I'm not like all over the screen. But this could be the energy that we're bringing in to this new bookshelf era. So let's talk. I'm going to go in order of enjoyment, kind of. I think that's what I'm going to try to go in, and I'm going to try to remember what I read. I just posted my wrap up on Instagram this morning, so I think I can do this. Let's find out. Okay, so kind of order of enjoyment. First, I'm going to talk about Faithless by C.L. Clarke. This is my favorite that was not a reread of the month. And honestly, I was very obsessed with this. I was very drawn in. I finished it relatively quickly, all things considered, for it being a long epic fantasy. I finished it in about a week. Listening to it on audio. So this is a flintlock fantasy inspired by the French occupation of Northern Africa. And I love it. This is the second in the trilogy. The third book comes out this October, I believe. It's called The Sovereign. Oh, and I need it so bad. I maybe should have waited to read this book because now I'm like, I need that book. I need it in my hands. So a little bit about what happens in The Unbroken, which is the first book. Essentially, we follow Touraine, who is a conscripted, meaning she was stolen from her land as a baby and raised to be military fodder, essentially. They were the front lines, the first to go in, and she was raised in this world, and then as an adult gets brought back to her homeland, and it's the first time she's been there since she was like 4 or 5 years old, and she doesn't remember the language anymore. She doesn't remember the people. She reunites with some people from her past and has very tenuous relationships with them. It's all very dramatic. Meanwhile, there are people in the military who look at her as nothing more than a flea and would really rather have her just be gone. And so she gets done for treason. She gets kind of rescued by the princess of Belladere, which is our fantasy France. And then she starts another tenuous relationship with this person because she is now indebted to this person who has saved her life, but is family of the person who put her in this situation to begin with when she was a child. So it deals a lot with colonialism and how that impacts individual people, and dealing with where are you truly from when you have been torn into and raised in both places and taught to hate everything that was your culture and your heritage while you tried to retain those pieces about yourself, but also trying to save yourself and maintain your sense of safety and individuality. And it does it in a very intense way. The audiobooks, I really like them. They are done with a bit of a French accent on the dialogue. It can be kind of hard to understand a little bit, I think, but like once I got into it, I was in it, and I really loved hearing the pronunciations of the names, especially the Khazal. I enjoyed it on audio quite a bit. Definitely going to be checking out more of C.L. Clarke's work. I think that she is a fantastic writer. So that was my favorite new read of the month. My next two, where I reread Gideon and Harrow as a buddy read, and just as obsessed as it was the first time. So, okay, everyone always tries to summarize Gideon the Ninth, and I think the main thing is getting focused on the whole lesbian necromancers in space, because I hate that tagline. I think it is wildly incorrect. Wildly incorrect. So Gideon the Ninth follows Gideon, who is an indentured servant, essentially, to the ninth house, which is a planet. We are in a sci-fi type world, but it is fantasy sci-fi. And so we're in this world where there are these different planets, and all the planets are referred to as houses, or they have a house on the planet. And Gideon is indentured to the house of the ninth planet, so the ninth house. And she wants nothing but to leave. The ninth house does bone necromancy. Gideon hates it. It's dark. It's dreary. The house is named Drearba. Like, it is dreary. Gideon and the lady of the house, Harrow, have been fighting their entire lives against each other. Harrow gets a letter in the mail that invites her to try to be a lictor, which is like a necromancer on steroids. She'll basically have godlike powers. And Gideon is like, hell no, I do not want Harrow to have those powers. And Harrow's like, but if you do this, I'll give you your freedom and you don't have to buy it back. I will just give it to you if you do this thing for me. So Gideon's like, fuck you, fine. So they go and they go to the first house, which is described essentially as Earth. And on the first house, we now have trials. And there's no really guidance to these trials. So Harrow leaves Gideon to her own devices, tells her, do not speak to anybody, do not speak at all, and wear your skull face paint so that they think that you have taken a vow of silence and you are a nun of the ninth house. So Gideon, who is very much neither of those things, complies, because why not? And Gideon ends up kind of meandering around the house, introduces us to the players from the other houses by doing her meandering, and eventually there is a murder mystery. So, what is the questions of the plot are, what is a lictor? Who murdered these people? And what the hell is going on? And those are the questions of the plot. So, we get some of them answered by the end in a very chaotic way, but they are answered, and it is tragic at the end. It is emotional, and it is tragic, and it is kind of enemies to lovers, but not really lovers, more like tenuous best friends who have some weird, fantastical connection to each other, and they are now stuck with each other forever. So, if that intrigues you, it is also written very voicey. It's very people refer to it as breaking the fourth wall a lot, but it's not. It doesn't actually speak directly to the reader, which is breaking the fourth wall. It is that there's a lot of meme references, a lot of Our World references. Tamsin Muir is clearly a meme lord. On audio, I think the book comes across a little bit better because Moira Quirk is the voice actor, and she just does a fantastic job of getting across who's actually speaking in this scene. Which in the book, if you're just reading the book, you're supposed to kind of guess, but it's sometimes nice to have someone be like, it's this person. It's okay that you didn't figure that out from the text, because I kind of did not figure it out from the text when I read it physically the second time I read it. So that's Gideon. Harrow then takes a completely different turn, because now we're following immediately after the events that happen in Gideon the Ninth, and suddenly we have met God, commonly referred to as Jod. His name is John Gaius, and he is our Necro Lord Prime. He is the first necromancer, and Harrow is dealing with some very emotional issues from what happened in the first book, and she's trying to piece everything together and block everything out and dealing with grief all throughout it. At the same time, is kind of deciding that Jod is kind of a dick. So we're following Harrow through that, and it is written in the first part in second person. So while Gideon the Ninth is a murder mystery with trials, Harrow the Ninth is kind of a amnesia plot almost. It's not quite amnesia. It is a fractured memory, I guess. It's not really amnesia. It's a fractured memory, and it is dealing with an attempt on Harrow's life consistently. It's a story of survival and a story of grief, and also gives you more information on what happened. It's a little bit more of a drama in space than Gideon the Ninth. It's an entirely different tone. It's a little more sci-fi, but with that fantasy overlay of everyone is doing necromancy. So, without spoiling anything for Harrow, that's what's happening. I can never decide if I love Harrow or Gideon more. I love them both separately for different reasons, but I am not a person who likes to choose favorites with things, because it depends on my mood. Sometimes Harrow is too emotional for me for it to be my favorite. Sometimes Gideon is just a little silly, and I kind of like this a little silly. I will put it this way. I read Gideon 4 times, and I've read Harrow 3 times, and I'm about to do my second read of Nona. So that is my kind of chaotic overview of what these stories are. I am really working on, like, in my head of what I want to do to talk about it, but I think that's actually the best summary I've ever given of Gideon. So we're going to stick with that. So that's the first 3 books I read. Those were going to be the ones I could talk about the most because those were my 3 5-stars. Oh no, I have one more 5-star. So Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Seanan McGuire is the second book in the Wayward Children series, and I loved this one. This one is tragic, and I love a tragic book. I love a tragic book, especially one that deals with vampires, and this one does. So in Down Among the Sticks and Bones, we have these 2 twin girls, Jack and Jill, who parents really wanted children, but they really wanted the idea of a child. They didn't actually want a child. They just wanted the idea of one. And that led to some very traumatic things in the kids' lives. I did do a whole review of this one and Beneath the Sugar Sky, so I'm not going to go too much in depth to it, but it has vampires and it has a mad scientist, kind of like a Frankensteinian type idea, and it's tragic and emotional, and I really liked it, but I don't think it's going to hit as hard if you don't read The Wayward Children or the Every Heart a Doorway first. You could, it doesn't spoil, I think neither of them really spoil each other, I guess, maybe, but Every Heart a Doorway really makes it much more emotional. So then my first 4-star, I'm going to go with Certain Dark Things by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is another vampire book. I finished this actually just like 2 days ago. I finished on the 31st. Wait for the sirens to go. So this is set in Mexico City, and it follows a vampire named Atoll, who is a very unique kind of vampire. There's a lot of hummingbird visualization around her, and she is very bird-like. When she feeds, she transforms into kind of a bird type thing, very hummingbird, but with talons. So she's on the run from this other vampire gang, which are Necros. And they are kind of, they're inspired by Dracula, your European vampire. They're your bloody, aggressive ones. And she's on the run for them because it turns out vampires, in order to like survive, started dealing drugs. So we have like a gang war type thing. And when she flees down into Mexico City, she ends up stumbling across this boy, Domingo. Domingo? Yes. Because every time I would say his name, I'd start singing the stupid SNL song.
I had to explain direct from Domingo.
But he's a very sweet boy. He's also homeless and dealing with his own struggles of surviving in this city, which is under heavy surveillance. We are very much in a surveillance state and trying to root out the vampires, but also just really shitting on poor people because history shows that's kind of what governments do when they have an excuse to do it. So we kind of deal with a lot of socioeconomic issues in this book while also having this semi-romance friendship play out between Atoll and Domingo while they try to get her out of the city. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. I like Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is not like a 5-star. It was a 4 for me, but it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I think it's very worth listening to or reading. I listened to it. I think the audio narrator did a fantastic job. Just overall great. So it was also fairly short. I think it was like a 9 or 10 hour book. So I listened to it just in a couple of days. Really, really enjoyable, especially if you like what vampires can be metaphors for. So Beneath the Sugar Sky, which I also talked about in depth in my review of the first 3 books of the Wayward Children series. In this one, essentially, a girl falls from the sky and she says, I have to find my mother because my world is disappearing because my mother, I can't find her. And then we get the reveal, oh my God, your mother's dead. And so then it's like, can we bring a dead girl back? That's the plot. But we're dealing a lot with what happens when you leave your world that you've like fell in love with, trying to adjust to a new one. Our main character is a heavier girl, and so she's dealt with a lot of that phobia directed to her. It's given her some trauma. She struggles making friends. She thinks everyone just views her negatively because of it. And so we're dealing with a lot of those types of social aspects of things. I did really enjoy it, not as much as Down Among the Sticks and Bones. So my other 4-star this month, my last 4-star was Mirror Mended, which is the sequel and final in the duology, which is the Fractured Fables duology. And this one still follows the same person in A Spindle Splintered. Her name is Zinnia Gray. She is a young woman who was diagnosed with a terminal illness and was supposed to die on her 21st birthday. And so she always identified with Sleeping Beauty, and she became like a scholar of Sleeping Beauty. So in this one, we follow her shortly after the end of the last book, and she has managed to get herself into a new fairy tale and dealing with some new moral questions. And any more than that is a spoiler because it's a short novella. But I did really enjoy it. This is it. I mean, it's mirror mended. If you look at the cover, you're going to know that it's Snow White. But I think it is that whole take on Snow White of like, what if the evil queen wasn't really the evil queen, and what if fairy tales are just misogynistic? But I think it did it in a really kind of good way. And I did enjoy listening to it. And I think the moral conundrums presented to Zinnia and how she had to deal with them are pretty good. I enjoyed it. I thought it was nice. Again, listen to it on audio, really well narrated. Okay, then that gets us into System Collapse by Martha Wells. This is the 7th book in the Murderbot series and kind of wraps everything up. I believe there's going to be more, but there's no announcement on when they're going to come out. So especially with the TV show coming out, who knows what pause that is going to happen on that. This one I was not a huge fan of. Obviously, it's a 3.75. I just wasn't the biggest fan. I think I saw someone say that it kind of felt a little fan servicey, and I do kind of agree. I do really enjoy the relationship between Art and Murderbot. I think that is fantastic, and I love watching their relationship develop and grow as Murderbot develops and grows. And this was kind of Murderbot coming to terms with the fact that it has some organic parts, and that means that its memories can actually be affected by an emotional response, and it has a memory issue. I love a book with a memory issue, but that is what kind of saved it. I thought the plot, it was a full length one. And I think when these become full length, they kind of lose some stuff for me. Like, I think it just feels like we're kind of doing the same thing over and over. And I get a little like, can we move on, please? Which is really unfortunate because overall, I really like the voice of Murderbot. I like what it does. I think it's funny and entertaining, but I think this one missed the mark for me just a little bit. I will still continue with the series when more come out. I still want to get them physically and give them a reread in physical form, see if that changes anything. But I think for now, I'm happy to be caught up and tempted to watch the show, but I don't have Apple TV, so not super tempted to watch the show because I really don't want another streaming service. Frostburned. This is the 7th book in the Mercy Thompson series, which is a vampire werewolf paranormal urban fantasy romance thing that kind of feels a little Scooby-Doo and a little Buffy. And it was just, I picked it up. This is one that I read it fully physical. I read 3 digital books, and they are all kind of in the end of my wrap up. So this one, though, it was fine. It was what I needed. It was what I wanted, except for that I really wanted something that was going to be kind of lighthearted and just be like, oh, I can pick this up and read it, because that's kind of what the series is for me. The series follows Mercy Thompson, who is a shifter. She can shift into a coyote. And in the first book, she's not quite sure what that means or why, even though she's like 30 years old. I also love that she's like 30 years old. So yeah, her neighbor is Adam Hauptman. He is the alpha of the Tri-Cities in Washington State werewolf pack. And I'm familiar with the Tri-Cities. I lived in Spokane for a while, close enough that I drove down a few times. So it's kind of nice to be like, an area I am at least familiar with the weather of, like, if not the roads and things. At least the climate, both like socially and like environmentally, feels familiar. So I like these because they're not very heavy on the romance, but you have that romantic subplot to them. There's a monster of the week in each book. There's always something happening. However, this one kind of did some like people pretending to be the government to kidnap a portion of the population that is currently being targeted by the government. And I was like, oh, do we got to do this right now? So that's what that one did. But overall, the book itself was once we got past kind of the things, it did kind of focus heavy on Kyle and Warren, which Warren is the only gay werewolf in that is out in all of the Tri-Cities and Western United States. And so his boyfriend Kyle is a high-powered, very smart lawyer. And I kind of love Kyle a little bit because Kyle is just like, Kyle is the God's hand in a lot of these things where Kyle's like, I'll just throw money at it. And it kind of fixes a lot of the situations. Adam is also very wealthy himself and has a lot of money that he can just throw at things. And it's just kind of nice to be like, oh, we'll just fix it with money. I think every now and then. Kind of nice. If we can't fix it with werewolf magic, we'll fix it with money. It's fine. But we did have a lot of like Kyle and Warren relationship stuff happening, which was kind of nice. I always like seeing their relationship. I think it's mostly done pretty well. These books were kind of getting a little bit more modern, but the first one was written in 2008 and it was was published in 2008, 2006, 2008. And it was very like 2008, I'm not like other girls, all this stuff. And I had to push past it a little bit because I was like, okay, it reminds me so much of a CW show that I'm just like, you know what? This is just my popcorn time. This is just my popcorn time, and it's fine. So do enjoy them as something to pick up, and I made some progress in the series. So my last two books I haven't spoken about at all yet because I was reading them while I was doing all of this. I was so disappointed. Oh no, I did a full review of Night Guest. So these were both 3 stars, but I did like Youth Juice a little bit better than Night Guest. I'm talking about Youth Juice first. So Youth Juice is kind of a take on the beauty industry as shit, and just churns out like women who only care about their looks and about nothing else, essentially. And I think it missed the mark in some things. I heard someone say it was kind of supposed to be like Natural Beauty, which I really want to read. It's just always a very long hold line at my library, and there was no hold for this, and I can see why. So I do want to read more of these like beauty industry stuff. This one was written from someone who worked in the beauty industry for a while. I think she was an editor for a beauty mag or something. It did the whole main character has something to hide about her past from us throughout the entire book. And then when that reveal happened, it was not that big of a reveal. And that was disappointing because I was like, if you're going to hide something the whole 260 something pages from me, give me more. Give me more. And we just didn't give me enough. And I was kind of like, we could have done a lot with this. We could have done a lot from this. So I'm going to do maybe like a full review of it at some point, but because I think I have some things I can say about it, it just wasn't, it kept like almost getting there and then backing down and then almost getting there and then backing down. And I know I've said this a few times before, but one of my like least favorite things that people do when they write horror or thriller or something is be like, the main character is keeping this from you. Like instead of just telling me, like I hate using the main character is keeping something from you as a plot device because it's just I feel like there's better ways to do that, to like slow reveal. I don't mind if the main character doesn't know and that's why we don't know, but when it's like the main character has a secret and I'm that person that if you don't want to tell me your secret, stop fucking bringing up your secret because I'm going to get irritated because I am nosy. I'm so nosy, and that's why I'm a scientist, because if I get what is this thing? Has someone done this thing? Let me research the shit out of it. Oh, no one's done it. I need to know the answer. Let me do it. Like, so if you're like, oh, there's this thing, I'm like, what's the thing? What's the thing? And then you're like, oh, there's this thing. And then you're like, I'm not going to tell you the thing. Tell me the fucking thing, or I'm going to get mad and I'm just not going to talk to you anymore. Like, stop hiding it from me. The dog's getting upset because I'm like, ugh. So it's okay. I'm just yelling at myself. We're fine. So Youth Juice. It was just kind of anticlimactic. Same problem that I had with The Night Guest. I think Youth Juice was a little bit better, at least about like hitting the gory notes, and also did build a little bit of tension at times. And it was very like, there were a lot of things in it where I was like, oh, I like that comment. I like this comment. There was a lot of comments about like women's rage and societal expectations of women on their appearances and how easy it is to get wrapped up in that. And I appreciated those things. I just wanted it to do a little bit more. If this author writes more, I will probably pick them up because I do think her writing was very interesting and I liked the prose. It was very prosy, and there was one review that was like complaining about the number of like similes and in it, and I was like, yeah, but I kind of liked them, like because of the way they were used so consistently and so like a lot. I was like, it was just a flow to it that it had, and I was like, I kind of like, I like this. I don't mind it because of how much she did it. It made it a thing, and I kind of like that it was just a thing. So that was Youth Juice. And then The Night Guest, which I also did a very long review of. So briefly, The Night Guest follows this woman, Idun, and she's not sleeping very well. She goes to the doctor a bunch, and and eventually her friends are like, "Why don't you get a step tracker?" And then she finds out she's walking 40,000 steps a night, and she's like, "Where am I going? What am I doing?" And maybe a ghost. I don't know. Like there's like a talk of like a ghost, and then I don't know what's happening. There's a ghost somewhere. Youth Juice. There's a lot of blood descriptions in Youth Juice. There's a lot of ghost descriptions in this one. There's also a lot of animal deaths. So if that's a problem, I would not recommend it. Like a lot of animal death. Youth Juice surprisingly didn't have any. If there was going to be one, I would have maybe expected it in the bloody book, but so that's those. That's what I read this month. Oh, I had a DNF. I had a DNF. So let's talk about that real quick. I DNF'd Le Fay by Sophie Keach, which is book 2 in the Morgan Le Fay series. The first book is Morgan is My Name, and I was like, it's fine. It's fine. Let me read the next one. I should not have read the next one. We're following Morgan. She's a little bit older. She's escaped her abusive husband, and now she's beefing with Guinevere because Guinevere doesn't like that Morgan isn't pious enough, and we need 2 women like to fight so that we can draw a wedge between Morgan and Arthur because for plot reasons. It was very when it wasn't like Guinevere and Morgan beefing with each other, it was Morgan mooning over her knight that she met in the first book, whose name has escaped me because I just really stopped caring. So I decided to DNF it. I couldn't push through anymore. I was rolling my eyes too hard. I really wish that we would stop calling every retelling that has a female main character a feminist retelling, because there's nothing feminist about women hating each other. There's really nothing feminist or revolutionary about it. Like, you told the story from Morgan's perspective, but you still made it like, hey, everyone hates her. Like, what's revolutionary about it? So, genuinely, I'm still working on finishing Buffalo Hunter here by Stephen Graham Jones. I started it and didn't get to finish it. So, that is what I read this month. If any of these you read and really enjoyed, tell me about them. Tell me why. Also tell me the ones you didn't like. Then let's talk about what I read. If there's something on here, or if my descriptions of any of these books and you're like, you should read this book, let me know. I think I'm going to do a video soon talking about every book that I've read that has like a memory thing in it, because I've read some really cool ones. And I was thinking about it, like Harrow has some cool memory stuff. On a Red Station Drifting has some cool memory stuff. Memory called Empire. There's some really cool books I've read that have some very interesting memory like things. It's not a trope. Memory, I don't know. Like events. So I think I want to talk about those because I found some really cool ones recently that I really like and discovered it's something I really enjoy. So I have yapped enough. I have yapped for a while. So I'm going to go and I'll see you soon with something else.